Hey guys, this is Mr. Sal. This is a quick lesson on writing and solving linear equations. Alright, here's the lesson 5 objective. I can write and solve linear equations. So this is a combination of lessons 3 and 4, I think. Actually, it may be lessons 1 and 4, where lesson 1 we were writing the equations, but in lesson 4 we were solving them. So we'll take a moment and write this down on the cover sheet. Alright, here's example 1 in your worksheets. We're not going to worry about taking time to solve this. We'll do it together so you guys have a couple examples to work with as you look at the other problems. So to start this off, it says one angle is 5 degrees less than 3 times the degree measure of another angle. So in comparing the two, I have one angle and then another. So I'm going to say that x in this case is some other angle. Together, the angle measures have a sum of 143 degrees. What is the measure of each angle? So we have two angles to compare on this. I have one angle, and then I have some other angle, so another angle. And that second sentence says, if I take the sum of those, then I get 143 degrees. Now we've already defined another angle as x, but what about the one angle? It says that it is 5 degrees less than 3 times the degree measure of another angle. So in relationship to the other angle, it's 3 times that, but then it says it's 5 degrees less than that. So once we figure out what 3 times that other angle is, we would take 5 away from it. Then when I add these two together, I get 143. Now be very careful on this, because if you put 5 minus 3x, you're going to get something very different. With subtraction, the order makes a huge difference. So make sure it is in this order. Then I can start combining like terms on the left side of the equal sign. I've got 3x's there and 1x there. That would combine to give me 4x's. Now I still got that minus 5, and this equals 143. So to solve, I'm going to keep my x's on the left, but I don't want that negative 5 there. So I'm going to have to add 5 to both sides of this equation using the addition property of equality, which gives me the 4x plus 0, but I don't want to show that plus 0. This equals 148. Finally, I don't want 4x's, I want 1x. So how do I get 1x from 4x? I'm going to use the division property of equality and divide both sides by 4. 148 divided by 4 is 37. Now, the question was, what is the measure of each angle? Well, the 37 degrees is just one angle. The other angle would be the 3x minus 5. But now we figured out what that other angle is, so I'm going to replace it with 37. So 3 times 37 minus 5. And 3 times 37 is 111 degrees minus 5 would give us 106 degrees. Now we should check this. It said the sum of the two should be 143. So 106 plus 37, does that equal 143 degrees? And it does. 143 does equal 143, that's true. So I know that my answer is correct on this. One angle is 106 degrees and the other is 37 degrees. Alright, we're going to do example 2 together as well. Given a right triangle, find the degree measure of the angles if one angle is 10 degrees more than 4 times the degree measure of the other angle and the third angle is the right angle. Well, here's what we know then. If the third angle is a right angle, then that's going to be 90 degrees, no matter what, because it's a right angle. But it said, find the degree measure of the angles. So we have the 1, and that's fine. We can kind of box that in at 90 degrees. But it then says, if one angle is 10 degrees more than 4 times the degree measure of the other angle, again, I can say and I can write that one angle in terms of the other angle. So I'm going to let x equal some other angle, just not the 90-degree angle. So let's look at that again. Find the degree measure of the angles if one angle is 10 degrees more than 4 times the degree measure of the other angle. Okay, so from that, we see that it's 10 degrees more than 4 times the other angle. So I would take 4 times the other angle, and it's 10 degrees more than that, so I would add 10 to that, and that will give me that value. Now here's what else we know about the interior angles of a triangle, is when we add them all together, we get 180. So right now, I know one of my angles is 90 degrees. Another angle is 4x plus 10 degrees. And then the other angle is the x degrees. When I add these together, I get 180 degrees. So this is the equation that we want. It's the sum of the three angles, which is 180. From this, we should be able to solve for x. So let's start by combining like terms. So I've got this 90 and 10, which will combine to be 100. But then I also have the 4x and the 1x right here, which combine into 5x. Now that 100 is positive, and all of this equals the 180. So I've simplified this by combining like terms, and I'm going to keep my x's on the left, so I don't want that plus 100, so I'm going to make it plus 0 by subtracting 100 from both sides of the equal sign. So then I've got 5x equals 80, and if I divide both sides by 5, then I get my 1x, which is what I want, and that would equal 16. So the other angle, x, is 16 degrees. Now in that 4x plus 10, we can go in and replace the x with 16, because right now we think it's 16. And what do we get when we evaluate that? 4 times 16, 64 plus 10, which would, and that would be 74. 74 degrees, and then the other angle was 16 degrees, and then the third angle is 90 degrees. Let's go ahead and check just to make sure that adds up to 180, because the three angles have to add up to 180. So 90 plus 16 plus 74, 6 plus 4 is 10, carry the 1, then we'd get 18 there. So that does check off, and we can see the three angles we got are correct. Alright, let's give you guys 1 minute then to do number 1. A pair of congruent angles are described as follows. The degree measure of one angle is 3 more than twice a number, and the other angle's degree measure is 54.5 less than 3 times the number. Determine the measure of the angles in degrees. Take 1 minute with your neighbor and see if you can write the equation for this and solve it and check it. Alright, let's go through this kind of one sentence at a time. A pair of congruent angles are described as follows. So I know one angle will be equal to the other angle because they are congruent. But then it says the degree measures of one angle is 3 more than twice a number. That allows me to define x. X is a number. We just don't know what it is. Now there was lots of unknowns, for example the two angles, but right now we don't know what x is, which will allow us to write the equation for that. So x is a number, and it said specifically that one angle is 3 more than twice a number. So I would take twice the number, and it's 3 more than that, so I would add 3. This should be equal to the other angle. The other angle's degree measure is 54.5 less than 3 times the number. So I've got to take 3 times the number less or subtract 54.5. So this sets up our equation, which we can now solve, and we get to choose which side we want the x's on. In the classes, Many of you said you wanted x on the right for this one and numbers on the left, which means my 2x is on the wrong side of the equation, and I can change it into a 0 by subtracting it from both sides of the equation using the subtraction property of equality. So then I've got 3 from this 3. 3x minus 2x is 1x, so 3x equals 1x, and then we'll drop this negative 54.5. Finally, to solve this one, I would add 54.5 to both sides of the equal sign using the addition property of equality, and that would give me 57.5 equals 1x. Now we've already got 1x on this, so that's good. That's what we wanted. The last thing we should do on this is check. So there's the equation there in black, but I'm going to go ahead and replace my x's with that 57.5. And from here we're just going to evaluate this to see if it is a true statement. So I've got 2 times 57.5 and 3 times 57.5, which give us this. Now of course we've still got that plus 3 equals the 172 plus 0.5 minus the 54.5. And then we'll evaluate these two as well. So that's 118, and 172.5 minus 54.5 is also 118. That is true. Since it is true, we know that our solution for this equation is an actual solution. It makes it a true statement. Alright, take 1 minute with your neighbor and see if you can do number 2. The measure of one angle is described as 12 more than 4 times a number. Its supplement is twice as large. Find the measure of each angle in degrees. 1 minute, go! Alright, the measure of one angle is described as 12 more than 4 times a number. Its supplement is twice as large. Find the measure of each angle in degrees. So, supplement, we know from 7th grade, is a 180 degree angle. But to start this off, it says the measure of one angle is described as 12 more than 4 times a number. So we're going to define our variable here. X is going to be a number based on what it said. And it said 4 times a number, but it's 12 more than that. So I would add 12 to that after I figure out what 4 times a number is. But then it says it's supplement. Well, supplement means if I added it to another angle, then I would get 180 degrees. Now this one specifically says that the supplement is twice as large. So I would have to take 2 and multiply it by that other angle, which was 4x plus 12. So that makes it twice as large. And from here I'm going to simplify this expression, or this equation rather, by distributing first the 2 into the parentheses. So 2 sets of 4x's would give us 8x's, and 2 sets of 12 would give us a positive 24. Nothing else changed. So I have distribution to simplify it, but now what I'm going to do is combine my like terms on this, which right here I've got 4x's and 8x's, which combine to give us 12x's. And then I've got 12 and 24, which combine to give us a positive 36. All of this is equaling 180. Right now I have all of my x values on the left, so I'm just going to keep them there, and I'm going to isolate them by getting rid of that plus 36 with the subtraction property of equality by subtracting 36 from both sides of this equation. So I'm going to drop my 12x here, which then equals, now that'd be 144. Finally, to solve this thing, we'll divide both sides by 12, which makes the coefficient of x a 1x. 12 divided by 12 is 1. 144 divided by 12 is 12. Now x isn't the answer, because up here it said that it wanted us to find the measure of each angle in degrees. But we can take that one angle, which was 4x plus 12, and I'm going to replace x with 12. When I evaluate this, it will give me the value of that angle. So 4 times 12 is 48 plus the 12. When I combine these, it appears that I get 60 degrees. So the measure of one angle is 60 degrees. It said that the supplement was twice as large. So I can just take 2 and multiply it by 60, which will give me the value of the other angle. Last thing we should do on this is check. So I've got a 60-degree angle and a 120-degree angle. When I add these together, I should get 180 degrees because they are supplementary. And they do. 120 plus 60 is 180, which does equal 180. That is a true statement. Therefore, I know that not only was x 12, but the two angles are 60 and 120. A triangle has angles described as follows. The measure of the first angle is 4 more than 7 times the number. The measure of the second angle is 4 less than the first. And the measure of the third angle is twice as large as the first. What is the measure of each angle in degrees? Take 1 minute with your neighbor and solve this one by writing the equation and then solving it, and check your answer on that. For number 3, a triangle has angles described as follows. So it's got 3 angles for sure. The measure of the first angle is 4 more than 7 times the number. So let's look at that. Let's evaluate that just to start out with. 4 more than 7 times a number. That allows me to define my variable just to start out with. It's just some number. And it may even be just for this one angle, but I'll take my chances on that. I'm going to take 7 times that number, which I don't know, and it's 4 more than that, so I would have to add 4 to that. Now that's one angle. The other angle is 4 less than the first. So I would take that same angle, 7x plus 4, but it's 4 less than that. Now we can evaluate that. 4 minus 4 is 0. So I would have 7x plus 0, but I can make that plus 0 a phantom 0. It's still there. I just don't want to look at it anymore. So 7x would be the second angle. Then the third angle is twice as large as the first. So I would have 2 sets of that 7x plus 4. And I can distribute that 2 into the set of parentheses. 2 times 7x, or 2 sets of 7x, would give us 14x's. And 2 sets of 4 would give us positive 8. So I have expressions for all 3 angles. Then it says, what is the measure of each angle? Here's what we know. Is if I take that first angle, 7x plus 4, and the second angle at 7x, and the third angle at 14x plus 8, when I add these together, those are the 3 interior angles of that triangle, has to equal 180 degrees. So this is our equation. We've defined our variable. Next, all I need to do is start combining like terms. So I've got 7x is here, 7x is there, and 14x is there, which would be a total of 28x's. Then I've got 4 there and 8 there, which combine into positive 12. All of that right now is equaling 180. So to solve this thing, I want my x's alone, so I don't want that plus 12. So I'm going to have to subtract 12 from both sides of the equation. So that gives me 28x equals 168. Finally, to solve for x, I'll divide both sides by 28. And I see there that x equals 6. Now again, that doesn't tell us the measures of the angles, it just tells us the value of x. So I can go back to these 3 equations, or expressions that I have, and replace x with 6. So the first angle, 7 times 6 plus 4, so 7 times 6 is 42, plus 4, so this angle would be 46 degrees. And then we also have 7 times x, where x is 6, and 7 times 6 is 42. And then back here, 14x plus 8, again we're replacing the x with 6. 14 times 6 is 84, plus the 8 would give us 92 degrees. So let's just check to make sure this works. I've got a 46-degree angle, 42-degree angle, and a 92-degree angle. When I add these together, 0 carry the 1, that's 180 degrees, so it checks off. And the three angle measures that I have, 46 degrees, 42 degrees, and 92 degrees, would be the measures of all three angles. One angle measures 9 more than 6 times a number. A sequence of rigid motions maps the angle onto another angle. That is described as being 30 less than 9 times the number. What is the measure of the angle in degrees? That's number 4 on the exercise set. Take 1 minute with your neighbor and see if you can write the equation for this and solve it. Number 4. One angle measures 9 more than 6 times a number. So once again, we can start by writing an equation just for that statement, because we can define already that x is a number. Well, what is the angle's relationship to that number? It's 6 times the number, but 9 more than that. So that would be one of the angles. A sequence of rigid motions maps the angle onto another angle that is described as being 30 less than 9 times the number. So that would be 9 times the number, but 30 less than that. And yes, we do have to be careful with where we put that 30. It really is a negative 30 because it's 30 less than the 9 times the number. Then it says, what is the measure of the angle in degrees? Now, what we need to remember on this is that rigid motions keep the angle the same. So in other words, these two are equal. And I can choose to put my x on either side. I guess we can do this a little different. I'm going to put my x's on the left and the numbers on the right. So that plus 9 is on the x side. It shouldn't be there, so I've got to use a principle of equality to get rid of it. So I'm going to subtract 9 from both sides of the equation, which gives me 6x equals, I still got that 9x, but negative 30 minus 9 is negative 39. Next, I've got the 9x on the number side of the equal sign, so I've got to get rid of it by subtracting 9x from both sides using the subtraction principle of equality. 6 minus 9x's would give us negative 3x's, which equals that negative 39. Well, I don't want negative 3x's, I only want 1x, so I'm going to divide both sides by negative 3. What does that do? Well, it makes this a 1x. Negative 3 divided by 3, negative 3 is 1. And 39 divided by negative 3 is positive 13 now. But once again, we weren't solving for x, we're solving for the angle. So I can check for both. 6x plus 9, it should equal 9x minus 30. So we'll solve these simultaneously by replacing the x value with 13. So we'll see what happens here. 6 times 13 is 78. Then I've got plus 9, which combines to be 87. And then the other, after the rigid motion, after the transformation, 9 times 13 is 117. We still got the minus 30. When we combine this, we get 87. So it shows that the rigid motion kept them equal and that 13 is the solution to the equation. The real final answer to this is the angle measure, which is both of these, because they're the same, 87 degrees. A right triangle is described as having an angle of measure 6 less than negative 2 times the number. Another angle measure that is 3 less than negative 1/4 the number. And a right angle. What are the measures of the angles in degrees? Take 1 minute with your neighbor. Solve number 5 in this exercise set. Go. A right triangle is described as having an angle of measure 6 less than negative 2 times a number. Let's go ahead and evaluate that. The angle is 6 less than negative 2 times a number. So just from that, we got negative 2 times a number, and we'll say x is some number. But it's 6 less than that, so we would have to take 6 off of that. Now another angle measure that is 3 less than negative 4, negative 1/4 the number. So that means we would have to take 1/4 of the number. It's a negative 1/4, I apologize. And it's 3 less than that, so we would have to take 3 off of that. And then the fourth angle is the third angle is a 90-degree angle. This is all inside a triangle, so if I add these together, then I should get 180 degrees. So this sets up an equation for us, which is very nice. And I'm just going to start by combining all my like terms. So I got negative 2x's minus 1/4 of an x. So negative 2, that would be negative 8/4 x. Combined with the negative 1/4 x would give us negative 9/4 x's. Then I've got negative 6, negative 3, and 90, which combine into 81. Now this all equals 180. So to continue solving, I would subtract 81 from both sides so that I get my x's on the same side or on only one side of the equal sign. I've isolated the x's. So this equals 99. So negative 9/4 x equals 99. And I'm going to multiply both sides by 4 using the multiplication property of equality. That's going to cancel out the 4's and get rid of the fraction. So I've got negative 9x equals 396. And then to solve for x, I only want one x, not negative 9 of them. So I'm going to divide both sides by negative 9. And that gives me x equals negative 44. Now I know one angle is already going to be 90 degrees because it said it was a right angle. Let's look at those other two angles. One of them is negative 2x minus 6. But I just found out that x is negative 44. So I'm going to replace that where the x was, and I can solve this. So negative 2 times negative 44 is 88. Minus 6 would give us 82 degrees. So that's what I think that other angle is, but then I also have the third angle, which was 1/4 of x minus 3. But again, I'm going to replace x with the x value we think it is, which is negative 44 right now. And negative 1/4 times negative 44 would give us 11 minus 3, which would combine to be 8 degrees. So let's just check to make sure these add up to 180. So I've got a 90-degree angle, an 82-degree angle, and an 8-degree angle. When I add these together, sure enough, I get 180 degrees. So that checks my answer off, and we're good to go on this one. One angle is one less than 6 times the measure of another. This is number 6 in the set. The two angles are complementary angles. Find the measure of each angle in degrees. 1 minute with your neighbor. Go! Number 6 in this exercise set. One angle is one less than 6 times the measure of another. The two angles are complementary angles. Find the measure of each angle in degrees. Alright. So it says one angle is one less than 6 times the measure of another. So we're going to say that x will be the other angle compared to this first one anyways. And what is it? It's 6 times the measure of the other one, but then 1 less than that, so we'll have to subtract 1 from there. Now it says that the two angles are complementary angles, which means when I add the two together, I should get 90 degrees for complementary. So what is the other angle? Well, it's just x, and we've only got 2 of these angles. So this is the equation, and we've defined the variable. Let's go and start combining like terms. 6x and 1x would combine to be 7x's. Minus 1, this equals 90. And then we would add 1 using the principle of equality so that we have the 7x's on their own side of the equal sign. So that gives us 91. Then finally we would divide both sides by 7, which gives us the x value, which appears to be 13. Now that's just the x value, but it did represent the other angle, so right now the other angle is 13 degrees, but we still have the one angle, which was 6x minus 1, or 1 less than 6 times the measure of the other, and the other angle was 13 degrees. So I'm replacing that x with 13 and just evaluating this. 6 times 13, 60, 78, minus 1, that would combine to be 77 degrees. So that's our second angle, but let's check just to make sure. These are complementary, so they should add up to 90 degrees. 3 plus 7 is 10, so we'll carry the 1. 7 plus 1 plus 1 is 9. So it does check off, and those two answers are good for this problem. Alright, now we've seen a lot of this from Lesson 5, the objective. I can write and solve linear equations. Included in this was defining the variable x and also checking the linear equation as we go. Alright, there's the answer. Go and take a minute, compare what you have with what is written here, and see what you did, see what you need to fix. I hope you got it right though. Number 2 in the problem set. An angle measures 17 more than 3 times the number. Its supplement is 3 more than 7 times the number. What is the measure of each angle in degrees? Take 1 minute with your neighbor and see if you can solve this one. Again, you shouldn't be waiting for answers. You should be trying this with your neighbor, discussing how you would solve it. Alright, there's the answer. Again, check what's written here with what you have and see what you need to fix. And then we'll give you another chance to try on number 3. Alright, here's number 3 in the problem set. The angles of a triangle are described as follows. Angle A is the largest angle. Its measure is twice the measure of angle B. The measure of angle C is 2 less than half the measure of angle B. Find the measures of the 3 angles in degrees. 1 minute with your neighbor. Go! Alright, there's the answer. Take 1 minute. Look this over with your neighbor and see what you need to fix so that you can get number 4 correct. Number 4 in the problem set. A pair of corresponding angles are described as follows. The measure of one angle is 5 less than 7 times the number, and the measure of the other angle is 8 more than 7 times the number. Are the angles congruent? Why or why not? Take 1 minute with your neighbor and see if you can solve this one. Good luck. Alright, there's the answer for this. Again, take 1 minute and see if you can figure out what you did, what needs to be fixed, and if your answer was correct based on your explanation. Number 5 in the problem set. The measure of one angle is 11 more than 4 times the number. Another angle is twice the first angle's measure. The sum of the measures of the angles is 195 degrees. What is the measure of each angle in degrees? 1 minute with your neighbor. Go! And there's the answer again. Just check and see what you did against what we have right here and see how you fared. Hopefully you did well. And number 6 on the problem set. 3 angles are described as follows. Angle B is half the size of angle A. The measure of angle C is equal to 1 less than 2 times the measure of angle B. The sum of angle A and angle B is 114 degrees. Can the 3 angles form a triangle? Why or why not? Take 1 minute, talk about this with your neighbor. Go! Alright, there's the answer. And we can see that the answer is that they do not form a triangle because the 3 angles added together is too much. Again, compare your work with what we have here. We do expect answers to look something like this because we expect you guys to explain your answers with full sentences. Alright, and there's our objective again. I can write and solve linear equations. We've learned how to do that in all the problems in this lesson. And that'll do it. So thanks for watching. If you guys, if the lesson helped, then go ahead and like, comment, and subscribe.